And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at a game called Horrified. Now, I'm always fascinated when a game shows up that I knew nothing about. And this one I didn't. When it came in the mail, I was like, oh, a horror game. Oh, wait. Nowadays, it seems that horror games are one of two types, zombies or Cthulhu. This one's neither. This is the classic Universal monsters. Now, living fairly close to Universal Studios and going there, I do not like horror movies much at all, but I do like the classic Universal Studio monsters. The classic stories of Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, Wolfman, the Mummy, Invisible Man, and the creature from the Black Lagoon. They're all in here, and this is a cooperative game where you need to stop these creatures and work together. It is here, let's take a look. Now, when playing this game, you're going to decide how hard it is. A normal game, you're going to play against three different monsters. So you can see I got Dracula, the creature from the Black Lagoon, and the Mummy out here. But you also have the Invisible Man, the Wolfman, and Frankenstein and the Bride. And you can play with just two of them. You can play with four if you want a hard game, and then you can pick which ones you're going to do. Each one has a different setup. It explains how to set up all the different monsters on the back of each sheet, and each one's going to have a different way to how to defeat that character, or in the case of like Frankenstein and the Bride, teach them to love, or in the case of the Wolfman, to cure him. So you're going to put these folks on the board. Each player is going to pick a starting character. So there are various characters that are involved in the game. Each character has a certain number of actions that they're going to take on their turn. So the mayor, for example, has 5 actions, and they also have a special action that they can do. So you can see that her action, where she can go to any space on the board except for a water space, is great, but she only has 3 actions. So you'll pick these characters and put them on the board in their starting location. You're also going to seed the board drawing items from the bag. Each item tells you where it goes, so the tablet here goes in the museum. There also might be some things changed, like this is a museum overlay that's only placed if you're playing with the Mummy. And then of course the monsters themselves are going to be placed in their starting spots on the board. Each turn of the game, a player has as many actions as it says on their card. These actions can be the following. You can move to an adjacent space. As the game goes around, there's going to be villagers showing up in the game. And villagers, when they show up, the card's going to tell you where they go, and then they're trying to get to the spot here. So Maria, she'll probably start in the barn, and she's trying to get to the camp. So if there's a villager in the same space as you, when you move, you can take the villager with you. Players can also guide a villager, where they can send a villager to an adjacent space, or essentially pull them into their space from another spot. A player can also pick up all the items that are in their space. So if the player's here, they could pick up this rapier, which is a level 5 red item. Or if they're in the tower, they could pick up all the items in the tower. And there's really no limit to the number of items that a player can have in front of them. Players can also share items. I can give items from one person to another person if we're in the same space. And then there's going to be special actions that you can take. There's a special action on your badge. So, for example, the inspector can go to any non-water space that has the monster in it. They can go to any non-water space. Her special ability is something that's automatically in play. Here, the professor can move any hero or villager one space. So there's special actions you can take. And then, depending on the monsters that you fight, you can take special actions. So, for example, to fight Dracula, and if I'm in a spot with one of his coffins, 4 different coffins started on the board, and I play 6+ value of red cards, items, discard that many, then I've destroyed that coffin. That coffin is then going to be placed in the proper spot, so this would be the dungeon. And when all 4 coffins are destroyed, I can go to Dracula's space and play 6+ yellow items to defeat him. The creature in the Black Lagoon, you go to the camp and you play any color item, and you'll move this boat to that spot. So if I play a yellow, it would go here. Then I play another yellow, it goes here. I play a blue, it goes here. I play a red, it goes here. Once this gets to the end, I can then play one of each color to defeat the creature from the Black Lagoon. In the Mummy, you go to the museum and use yellows to move these around, trying to get them into their correct positions, which seems like that might be a little trickier, but you'll have a certain number of moves, and you're trying to get them in the right spots, and then you'll go to the mummy spot and use 9 or more of the red items to defeat the mummy. And each person has very specific ways to defeat them. For the Wolfman, trying to discover a cure, the Invisible Man figuring out where they are, and Frankenstein and his bride, who will have dials on them, and you are going to be trying to move these dials and increase your humanity so that they can once again find love and realize that they're human after all. Now that sounds easy, but at the end of your turn, you're going to flip over a monster card. Now, a monster card will do several things. First of all, the number at the top will bring out a certain number of items from the bag that will be placed randomly on a board wherever the item is supposed to play. Then there's an event that may or may not happen depending on if that monster is in play. So example, this is the Wolfman, and in the game I'm showing here, there is no Wolfman. This one here brings out a innocent person. This brings out Professor Pearson. He shows up at the cave. This one here is Dracula's card. So Dracula at sunrise, he runs back to the crypt. So these events may or may not happen. Sometimes they will happen no matter what monsters are in the game, and sometimes they're specifically for one of the monsters. Then at the bottom of the card, it shows you which monsters will move and attack. Monsters will always move and or attack the closest player and or innocent person, and they're going to be rolling a certain number of dice. And for each hit that they have, if they hit the character must discard an item. If you don't want to discard an item, or you don't have any items to discard, then the terror level goes up by 1, and the player is placed at the hospital where they'll start their next turn. If a villager is attacked and there's no player there because the player gets hit first, the villager has nothing to defend himself with, so they're gone, and the terror level will be increased by 1. If the terror level gets all the way over here, then players have lost the game. You'll also notice this frenzy marker here. It starts on the character with the lowest frenzy value, and many of the monster cards are going to tell you to move the monster with frenzy. So for example, this card here says the Invisible Man, Frankenstein, and then whichever monster has frenzy, they'll move 1 and they'll attack with 2 dice. Monsters also, when they attack, will roll an exclamation point, which can do all sorts of things. It all depends on the monster. So for example, Dracula, when that happens, whoever is the current player, their hero goes right to Dracula's space. He has charmed them. While the creature from the Black Lagoon will move the boat 1 space backwards, and the mummy will cause one of these, the lowest one, to be turned face down, causing you to have to remember where everything is, which can be tricky. Each character will start with a special card drawn from a deck that you can use during any player's turn. Like here, the current player takes 2 additional actions. Skip the next monster phase, draw and place 2 items from the bag. These are great cards, and you can get more of these cards every time you get a villager to where they need to go. Getting a villager to the spot they want to go to not only removes them from the board so the monsters can't attack them, but gives you one of these cards. So players will win the game if they complete the objectives to defeat the monsters in play. They will lose the game if the terror track gets all the way over here. Players will also lose the game if the entire monster deck is drawn. They've run out of time. I love the artwork in this game. I love how this town has that feel of these classic Universal movies. The characters, the artwork is fantastic. Not only is the artwork fantastic, but the cards very clearly tell you what they do. They tell you, here's what their special power does, here's how you will defeat that monster, etc. in the order. And I like how the back of everyone tells you how to set up the monsters, so the monsters that you're not using, you can use to set up the ones that you are using. The miniatures themselves, they're okay, right? They're not like amazing miniatures, but they are colored very differently, easy to tell apart. I extremely love the artwork on the different characters here. They're all very diverse, and again, very easy to see the differences between them and what their special abilities are. And just really everything about this game is nice, high quality. The cards could be better quality, I guess, but the pictures and art in them, it's just fantastic all around. Really happy with the production. There's so much good about this game. I really like it. Now, I know that it's not a complex cooperative game. I'm okay with that. And it's also does what I want cooperative games to do, which means you can start and play an easy-ish game. So they tell you for your first game, play with just Dracula and the creature from the Black Lagoon. It's not that hard to beat that level. It really isn't. You can, and then you can be like, all right, this game isn't so hard after all. Easy level is any 2 monsters. Regular level is 3 monsters. Yeah, I almost beat regular level, but didn't. It was close, but I know I could beat regular level. And then hard level with 4 monsters, much more difficult. And I like that. I like that the game has that sliding difficulty scale. But not only does it have the sliding difficulty scale, you also have the different monsters, which gives a lot of replayability to the game. And each monster, it has different ways to defeat them, and so it feels like a different thing. And I think some monsters are probably harder than others. I felt the mummy was harder than the creature from the Black Lagoon. Now, the creature from Black Lagoon comes after you more. It's moving along the waterways. Dracula scares you to death. So what do? Do you work on whatever you're closest to, or do you work on the character? Let's everyone focus on the mummy. Let's get rid of the mummy. This is just, it worked, and it's thematically neat. Like a lot of cooperative games, and this game definitely is inspired by the cooperative games. The fact that the mayor has 5 actions is like, oh yes, there's a character in Pandemic that does this. There's a lot of, you can tell that whoever designed this has played Pandemic and other games. But it all makes sense thematically. You need red items to defeat this creature. You need yellow items to defeat Dracula, for example. What are the yellow items? Hey, they have to be steaks and garlic and things like that. Well, of course, that's what you'll need to defeat Dracula. The game has luck in it, obviously, where you're pulling different items from the bag. The villagers showed up, and I love the villagers because you are trying to protect them. Like, come on, let's go this way. But you can also ignore them sometimes. You're like, you know what, Professor? I'm sorry, you're on your own. I know we're going to go down in the terror track because Dracula's going to come get you, but we need him to head that direction after you anyway because we're going to go to his lair and destroy another coffin. This game makes me happy. It's a unique theme. How many games use the Universal Monsters? It is a fun theme. Like, it's not too... I played this with my kids. It's not too scary for them. They're like, ooh, the Wolfman and Mummy, but it's not too scary. It's not too dark. And yet, it has that good cooperative feel. There's a lot of cooperative games that come out these days. But this is one that instantly becomes one I want to play over and over again. It instantly has that feel of, I can make it as hard as I want or as easy as I want. It can fit across age groups, and it's just fun to play. It's also not that long. We're talking 45 minutes to an hour. And it looks neat. There's just very little bad I can say about the game, other than I think some people might find it too simple. But for me, it is a lot of fun. Horrified. The stakes have been raised. Punny, silly, but overall, I should mention that these monsters have been sillified to some degree, right? Like when you see these Frankenstein and Dracula and Wolfman, they're not as scary as the other ones. But at the same time, this game, even though I guess there's a tongue-in-cheek to some degree, this game takes it seriously. It says it doesn't make light of the situation. It embraces the campiness of it, and at the same time plays the theme nice and straight. Just a lot of fun. Definitely check out Horrified. Dice Tower Judgment, excellent.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando, in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.